Yeah, world record's dead here. Wait, maybe? Oh my god, we might have done it. I think we did it. Holy shit. I think I got the 41. Dude, you're kidding. Please. Let me be done.
Jeez.
Yes! There it is. First 43, first 42, and now the world's first 41. All fucking me. Let's go.
Welcome back to After the Split. You already know it's the deep dive interview show going to the lives of speedrunners. As always, After the Split can be found on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or pretty much any other place you can find podcasts. Now, the intention is to release an episode every 2 weeks, and this is the third episode that is released on time, so, a little claps for that. Apologies for the mic feedback in the last episode. It was a new mic at the time with a faulty cable, and I didn't know till it was already recorded and published, so that kind of sucked. But hey, it should be fixed now. This week, I'm thrilled to have a much better gamer than myself, RhinoFeeder. So thank you for being here, Rhino.
Yeah, how's it going?
It's going great.
I'm happy to be here.
How's your day going so far?
It's going good. It's been super hot where I live, so the room I'm in right now is like, I'm super sweaty here, but we're gonna make it through. It's gonna be a good time.
You don't look sweaty, so that's good.
Yeah, I'm trying.
I don't think I've ever seen your stream room with the sun out or with lights on, pretty much. It's always like usually kind of later, a little gray.
Well, in the summer, it stays light out, gosh, where I live in the winter, it's dark by like 4 p.m. It's terrible. But in the summer, we get really, really long days. So.
Now, I've come to know Rhino for running Hollow Knight, but stayed for the very comfy streams during stuff like Bloons and Destiny. But before I butcher it, really, who would you say that you are?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Rhino. I don't mind being called Alex as well. I usually say that because like I've been RhinoFeeder on the internet since I was like 13 years old. I got that name from an old Homestar Runner skit, and it just kind of stuck for the rest of my existence. And then I kind of hit a point in life as a grown adult. I'm like, I don't mind being called my first name either, because sometimes being called Rhino just feels weird. But I don't mind either. But yeah, I would say as a streamer, definitely primarily a Hollow Knight speedrunner. That's definitely where I built most of my following. That I started out doing any percent pretty early off during the pandemic, actually. I think that's probably a common story with a lot of people, that streaming and speedrunning was kind of a pandemic hobby.
Mine as well, actually. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Like can't leave the house, can't go anywhere. Got a lot of time to play video games and stream. So that was a hobby I took up. But with Hollow Knight, I started playing the game casually. I really, really liked it, and I just thought, hey, like I'm kind of good at this game. Like looking at guides online, like I was looking at guides online and reading stuff and finding different Reddit posts. And like, man, I'm not having nearly as much trouble with a lot of these things as a lot of people are saying they are. Like, and I'd always been interested in speedrunning. Like I found out about speedrunning back in like middle school when I was like 11, 12 years old. I just find YouTube videos like, oh, look at this guy beating Super Mario World in 40 minutes. And I thought that stuff was cool. So the stars kind of just aligned there, I guess, to give me that perfect opportunity. And like, I feel like Hollow Knight could be a good game to maybe try speedrunning and getting into. So yeah, I started streaming that and got better and better as the years went on and started developing a following. These days, like you mentioned, I definitely do a little bit more variety these days. I think anybody who speedruns a game for a long time can attest that burnout is a super real thing, especially when you're playing at a high level for so long. So taking breaks, I did some Celeste for a little bit. I stream a lot of Destiny, as you mentioned. Little bit of Bloons. It's a much more relaxing, chill game.
I enjoyed a lot. It's just
Bloons
chatting, but there's something on the screen. I've never played Bloons. I don't understand what's going on to this day. But like, yeah, I'll go in. It's the good music. I'm vibing.
Yeah, that's how it feels.
Good
like
talk.
It's yeah, Bloons. I often joke in my Discord that Bloons streams are like a glorified just chatting stream, more or less.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, interesting. I guess I thought that you were more of an old head runner. I didn't realize that you had only kind of started during the pandemic, which I mean is still almost 3 years at this point. But
yeah, it's funny you say that because like I'd always wanted to. And I'm gonna sound like such an old man here, but like so like I'm 30 for people who don't know. But man, back when I was like in middle high school, like we didn't have Discord. YouTube was kind of like, I remember when YouTube started, like there weren't all these resources out there that made it so easy. Like, oh, I want to speed run this game. I'm going to hop into this Discord with 500 other people who understand what's going on.
Yeah.
So it was kind of hard. You kind of just had to, maybe you'd watch YouTube videos, find like an online forum somewhere where people were talking about a game. It's the world is so different nowadays with getting involved in gaming and speedrunning and competitive gaming. Like, an example I'll make that I still laugh at to this day is, I played Counter-Strike at a super, super high level when I was in like middle and high school.
Oh,
And
dang.
back then, Twitch and streaming wasn't really around. If you wanted to see how high level players played the game, you had to go find like a recorded demo online somewhere that was just recorded from one player's point of view, and there'd be like no commentary, no player audio, anything. So yeah, honestly, if I were born later, I probably would have gotten into speedrunning way younger, but
I almost kind
the
of wish
resources are there now.
Yeah, I wish I got into things like when I was younger, especially since I think the bar for what was considered good content was so much lower. Like you could upload just about anything, and it's like, oh, this is funny, this is this is good. Nowadays, like it's very, which is a good problem to have, but it's saturated with just like too much good stuff that you really have to go above and beyond to stand out.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people don't really grasp that. Like, for most of my life, like the thought of making a living making YouTube content and streaming was like unheard of. Like, you would never ever think of that, right? But nowadays, people are making millions on YouTube. Like there's kids half my age making like more money a month than I'll ever see in my life. It's a very different world we're living in. And like you said, it's not a bad thing. It's really cool, actually. And I think that's kind of spread to many areas of life outside of gaming, even like, if you're like a guitar player or something, you could, it's so much easier to find videos online, like YouTube guides and tutorials of how to play the song I want to play. So yeah, there's just so much more. There are so many more resources out there these days that I think help people get into things. In the context of what we're talking about, speedrunning in particular, that there's just so many more resources out there now that are awesome to get into.
I saw the craziest thing actually just this last weekend.
Yeah.
Went over to my uncle's. He's got 3 little kids, and the youngest one, she's like 3 or 4 or something, like real little. And he showed me this video, and she was like, "Hi guys, this is my guide on the." I'm like, "Oh my god, how's she even know like what YouTube is like that? Let alone making videos?" And it's like a dream occupation now. Which, I mean, I don't remember exactly what I had the idea of as a kid, but I guarantee it wasn't to make YouTube videos.
No,
now
definitely
I do it for
not.
free.
Yeah, right. You do it for free for the love of it. Well, and that's another thing too. I've talked about this with some friends that I don't know why, but I feel like streaming, for whatever reason, it's like, as an adult, I've noticed this. It's like the only hobby where when you tell someone like, hey, I do this, for some reason, so many people find it socially acceptable to go right to like, oh, how much money do you make doing that?
Oh yeah.
And it's such a weird thing. Like, because if you told somebody that like, oh, like I play baseball as a hobby, no one asks like, oh, how much money do you make doing that? But like, for some reason, the moment you say, oh yeah, I stream in my free time, it's like, oh, how much money do you make doing that? And I've always found that a little weird. But
I guess because it varies so much. Like someone, you could have your big dog millionaires, but you could also, hey, if you're making even just a living off of something, because it's different still. I think it's still unique enough that's like, I don't know, I could be talking to Junior Jeff Bezos, or I could be talking to a homeless guy. I don't know.
No, it's funny you say that too, because there's this one woman I met recently through like a professional network in like where I live, and it's kind of like it just pairs up different people that work in the tech field, like in my city, just kind of for random meetups periodically. And this one woman I met up with, she's talking to me, and I'm like, oh yeah, I do some streaming on the side. She's like, oh, like, have you heard of Simply? I'm like, yeah. Why? She's like, oh, that's like my stepmom's like, so like, I'm making this up, but it was like some like not super distant related like distant family member. I'm like, what are the odds of that, right? Like, that's crazy. Yeah.
I guess so. It's weird because I think of someone like Simply, like they're a micro celebrity of sorts. Like, if we saw him, we'd be like, oh, wow, that's Simply. But he goes to Target or something, he might not get recognized. Like the cashier, I don't know who that is. And
isn't that the dream though? Like
yeah, oh,
famous
yeah,
enough
for
to have a ton
sure.
of money and enjoy life, but like you can still walk down the street in peace. That's the dream right there.
Well, so I guess it almost surprised me. My friend who got me into speedrunning and streaming in general, I was
Yeah.
just like on Snapchat. He went to the last GDQ,
Oh,
and
cool.
I just see a picture like him and Simply just in a hotel room together, like partying with a bunch of other people. And I'm like, oh wow, yeah, I guess it is that connected. I would almost think you're almost too big for that sort of thing after a certain point.
Yeah, right. It's like it's crazy to think of these people like they are celebrities in also our small little niche
Mm-hmm.
section of the world. These are like the famous celebrities that we have. It's crazy.
All right, so I'm actually going to backpedal just a little bit.
Sure.
Let the people get to know who you are a little more. You talked about, and this is always my starter. So how you got your screen name? You said it was from way back when. What
Yeah,
exactly
yeah.
was it from?
Yeah, so it was from for anyone who's familiar with the old Flash cartoon website Homestar Runner. I don't know if you are,
Little
but there
Trogdor, I remember.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So in one of the skits, they were called the strong bad emails, and one of the questions he answered, somebody asked him, like if you were in a video game, what would it be? And one of the video games he was in was called RhinoFeeder, and I played it on my stream a while back just for the memes. But I made that my like AIM screen name back when I was in middle school, like
Oh,
eighth
dang,
grade.
yeah,
Like
this
that's
is
that's how
dating
far back we're going here. Yeah,
it.
we're going way back here. Yeah, and I just kept that as my screen name online ever since. So yeah, that's where that comes from, and I've just held on to it because I think it's unique. I haven't found anyone else trying to use the name.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So now that it's, I mean, so many years later, do you wish you would have rebranded, or are you happy with it?
No, I'm pretty happy with it. Like, because again, it's unique. I've never had to compete for that handle on any social media. Like, my Twitter account, like my RhinoFeeder account, that was actually my personal account that I started. Like, I want to say 2008. Like that account goes way back. I will say though, a lot of the RhinoFeeder social media I have that I did start using once I started streaming, I went and cleared out like any old stuff, like any dumb stuff I tweeted when I was like a 16-year-old kid or whatever. Like I'm like, I don't even want to look at this. We're just like complete blanket blowing all of it
Yeah, definitely a
away.
good
Like,
call.
yeah, just because I'm not saying like I said anything terrible or whatever. I'm like, I don't know what I like tweeting about some
Mm-hmm.
girl I had a crush on when I was in high school. It's
Nobody
like,
needs to see the RAR XDs in 2023.
yeah, seriously. No, that's literally what it probably was. Like, just real cringe stuff like that from when we were younger. I'm like, nah, we're gonna blow away all of it.
Something I see every now and then as I'm like,
Yeah.
oh no, which not too much in the past like 5 years, but like Facebook used to say your name and then is, so then you would almost type it like you're finishing the
Yes.
sentence, and it's like, wow, this stuff did not age well. Delete, delete, delete.
Yeah,
Or
I
they like
actually
this page and stuff like that. So
no,
you'd see
I
the
do that
pages.
every
Ugh.
day on Facebook. Like I look at the on this day and I'm just like anything that's super cringe from years ago, we're deleting
Gone.
that. It's like you said, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
like it used to be like Alex is and then like finish the sentence. And now, like you said, it didn't age well, and now those statuses just look really weird.
Mm-hmm.
It's really funny. It's like we kind of grew. I think you're like roughly around my age.
Yeah,
Like
I'm
yeah,
28, so fairly
yeah. It's like
close.
we kind of grew up when social media was just becoming a thing.
Oh yeah.
And like I feel it looks so it's almost like as society, we were like a little puppy learning how to walk for the first like I don't know what to post here. I don't know what people want to see. Like we would post the dumbest stuff online, right? Like we'd be like going to the mall with my besties. It's like,
Yeah,
and
and
nowadays like
people were like, "Oh yeah, that's cool, man."
yeah, right. People
Yeah.
like it. Yeah. Like,
Nowadays, they're like, "And who asked?" All right.
yeah, seriously. Like why do we care about this? You get 0 likes, people would probably unfriend you.
The one that I think back on so roughly, I'm like, I can't believe I ever did this. I can't believe anybody even still does is like vague posting. Like, oh my
Oh
god,
yeah.
can't believe that happened. Oh.
Trying to get attention, like
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
We inspired our own clickbait
Gosh.
in each other. It was terrible.
I mean, that's all we had back. Like I said, we were kind of trying to figure out, like, I don't know, what do I post on Twitter? What do I say on Facebook with like the 2 people that follow me? Yeah. I remember back in the MySpace days, that was crazy. Dude, fun fact about so I know I talked about I've been I'm gonna share this story because it's funny
Yeah,
and I've
go
cleaned
off.
up since. But so there was someone in my stream once. So like I said, I've been a RhinoFeeder online for like 16, 17 years. And someone comes into my stream once and they're like, "Hey Alex, like I saw you live in my actual specific small town."
Oh,
And they're like, "I grew up there. Like, isn't that cool?" And I was like, like I banned them right away.
not
'Cause,
here.
like,
It's not. No.
yeah, because like it wasn't like my profile ship says like Western New York. I'm fine like
Mhm.
being that like the western part of New York State. Like that,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I don't really go much more specific than that just for, it's the internet. People are crazy out there. But this person, like, it wasn't even like the greater city I live near. It was like my specific town.
Oh,
And
yes.
yeah,
Way
and I
too
was like real sketched.
identifying.
Yeah, I was like really sketched out by it. And they sent an unban request, right? And they're like, "Hey, like it was super easy to find you and stuff on the internet, so I figured you were just okay with it." And I'm like, man, I don't know about that. Like I've spent a lot of time like covering my tracks and going back and
Mhm.
deleting stuff. Like me and one of my friends who, I'm a software engineer. One of my friends who's also a software engineer, I'm like, dude, can you help me for a bit? Like, just try searching like things you can find through my RhinoFeeder socials and see if you can connect like my full name and town to RhinoFeeder. And we couldn't do it. Like we
Oh,
couldn't do it. It's hard. Yeah. Like I'm like, we Googled for like 30,
they
40
went
minutes.
above and
Like I have,
beyond then.
well, so I finally messaged the guy back and I'm like, "Hey, like I understand like maybe you found me easily, but like it really wasn't cool to just dox me like that." I'm like, can you like if you don't mind, can you tell me where you found my info? This person found my old MySpace account
Oh,
that I
wait, they
hadn't
still
I forgot.
exist?
That's why I didn't even know it still existed. Like they just searched like RhinoFeeder on MySpace. And like I immediately went and like deleted the account and everything because like it had my full name and everything on there. So like that's how they found me. But yeah. So like I've definitely been careful about like I said, I think I DM'd you before we started this and like, yeah, if people really wanted to find me out there, they probably could. I just
Mhm.
don't want to make it any easier for them.
Yeah, I've kind of made the mistake. I don't know if I necessarily regret it, but so I didn't make up the word Gaffy, like that's my last name. So now I'm like,
Mhm.
I probably shouldn't, just give my first name that
Sure.
freely. But
Yeah.
also I'm like, if someone's going through the effort, they probably could anyway. I'm not like super secret. Like I live in a big city, which does help.
Yeah.
But, I do say like, oh yeah, I'm from Cincinnati, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Luckily, I haven't had real creepers. Maybe when I'm bigger in a couple of
Yeah.
years.
Once you're a big famous streamer, yeah, you'll have to
Yeah.
watch it. But then like there's also huge streamers I know like Shroud and like Glad who streams Destiny and they're just like, "Oh, here's my full name, the city I
Yeah,
live in,
right.
whatever." Like they
Dare you
don't
to
care.
try.
Yeah, exactly. I dare you to try getting near
Mhm.
my house. Yeah.
That's what makes me think it might almost be like not too big of a concern. I mean, besides obviously swatting
Yeah.
concerns, but
Right.
luckily it seems like
Crazy.
that's a dying trend. Thank God.
Yeah, I mean, once enough people probably got arrested for it. Yeah. But yeah, I've never had any issues. That was the only time where I was like, "Damn, that person really just fully found all my info." It was crazy.
So this is, you know what? I'm gonna feel weird about this one, but we're just gonna have to
Go
go
for it.
past it anyway. So on
Mm.
the topic of personal information, I've heard
Yeah.
that I've heard you talk about your significant other before. How long have you been married?
Yeah, so I met my wife, I want to say it was like God, I'm a terrible husband right now. We
Ooh,
met in I want to say 2015, like September 20. It was either 2014 or 15, like 99% sure 2015. Um, I met her at a Panic at the Disco concert. Actually,
which
I
is
was like,
so gangster, by the way.
I know, right? Yeah, like I was pretty drunk actually, and I was just like, I'm just gonna go talk to women here at this concert, and she ended up being one of them, and now we're married. Yeah, we got married in 2019, so about 4-ish years now. Yeah,
I have to
it's
take a
crazy.
guess then that you've got to be fairly extroverted then if you're just like meeting random people.
Yeah, I'm pretty extroverted. Like I don't mind talking in front of people. I've never had an issue. It's like speaking in front of huge crowds.
Hmm.
Yeah. I mean, because my mentality that like especially with like 3 or 4 beers in me, I'm like, I don't know. The worst thing that happens is like they say, "Hey, don't want to talk to you." I'm like, okay, and then they forget I existed, and
Yeah.
it's like
Oh, I
whatever.
guess
Yeah.
that's true. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Right.
I find myself a decent mix in the middle where
Yeah.
like I don't mind, public speaking, something like that. But I also, maybe if it's more intimate, I guess, like a one-on-one, like I'm not just gonna walk up to random person, and
Yeah, it
most of the
definitely
time
depends
anyway.
on the depends on the setting for me. It depends on my mood. Like obviously now, like I'm just older and I'm more relaxed now. I was
Mm-hmm.
23 when I met my wife. Yeah, so at that point in life, I
Oh
was just
yeah,
much
true.
more. Yeah, I was just much more outgoing. Didn't really have many things to worry about. Like young, single, all these things. So yeah, like I often joke, I'm like, I don't know if I'd have the courage to do that today. Like the exact same thing. I don't know if that would play out the same. But yeah, so we actually got married on May 4th.
Oh,
We're
fairly
both
recently. Happy anniversary.
thank you. Yeah, yeah. We're both pretty big Star Wars fans. Um and
May the
we didn't
4th.
like
Mm-hmm.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. And we weren't like dead set. Like we're not like crazy Star Wars fans. We're not like gonna walk around the streets in Darth Vader and Princess Leia gear and stuff. But we like Star Wars enough where the year we wanted to get married, it just happens to be a Saturday. And we're like, cool, let's do it. So yeah, that was fun. And yeah,
I
been
guess the
married like
real
4 years.
question is, did you Star Wars theme the wedding? That will determine if you're a super fan or not.
I will say we Star Wars accented the wedding. Like
Wait, what does that mean?
we didn't want the entire wedding to just be like in your face Star Wars, like lasers and lightsabers and stuff, but
So you had Jar
we
Jar Binks as the priest? Or,
that would have been really cool actually. No, like we did small little subtle things at first, like the song we walked out of the like at our wedding reception, or not, sorry, the ceremony. When we walked out of the space, there was a acoustic guitar version of the Star Wars theme playing,
Oh,
and
that's cool.
most people probably didn't even notice. Later on at the reception though, like later at night, like we had our DJ play some Star Wars remixes, which was really cool. We had like inflatable lightsabers and like shitty paper masks like you'd get at Party City or something that people were wearing. Yeah.
Oh, it makes for
So
good
yeah.
pictures though, for sure too.
Oh yeah, there's some great pictures from that. Yeah, like there are a bunch of people making jokes like, "Yo, who's Boba Fett dancing with my wife over there?" Like, stuff like that. Yeah. But no, it's crazy to think we've been together that long. Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously, I would assume you live with your wife. I'm not going to make
Yeah.
too much assumptions here, but I guess how does she feel about like streaming and stuff like that? Is she cool with it?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked. Like, it's funny. She's actually so cool with it that I actually feel guilty sometimes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like so there was you could probably find it on my Twitch, like way back when I got my first sub 34 in Hollow Knight any percent, which at the time, like I know nowadays, like you got Skate King casually pumping out 31-minute runs and like low 32s. But like back then, I mean, when I got that, it was like a 33:56. That was like 7th place on the boards. Like that's how far the game has come. And I was grinding for that. Like I got that with less than 500 hours in the game total.
Oh, dang.
Yeah, and my wife was super supportive. She was really cool about like when she could tell I was getting closer, and like because she would watch my streams, when she could tell I was getting closer and closer to hitting that barrier, like 33 was like the barrier then. Like she was getting ready to go to the liquor store and like get champagne to celebrate and stuff. And I think where my guilt comes in with it was there are a lot of times like, man, I'm spending so much time streaming, grinding out this game, practicing, that I almost feel like I'm neglecting some of my house duties. Like as an adult, that should be like helping with laundry, helping with dinner, all these different things. And like she would never say it, but I know she definitely felt kind of stressed that like I wasn't helping out as much as I should have. And I got kind of emotional after I finished that 33 grind back in 2020 or 2021. I forget exactly when, because the big part of me is like, man, I can kind of step away from the game a bit, happy with my time. I can go back to like supporting my wife, helping out, like, as a family man, doing that stuff. Because again, at the end of the day, streaming is not my livelihood. It's a hobby. It's something I do for fun. And I think it was really important for me to step back for a bit and make sure I was still taking care of my responsibilities as a human being. I'm sure that's something a lot of people struggle with, honestly, just finding that balance of, it's hard for me even now as a grown man with a 40-hour a week job, and I have responsibilities. I have a puppy. I have all these things I got to take care of, and watching, kids in high school who are about to be off for the whole summer, like all day, every day can just grind and pass me.
Oh yeah.
And I kind of just had to let that go. Like, yeah, this is gonna happen. It's fine. And it's just a game. It's not my livelihood. It's not life. And it's okay for other people to pass me on the leaderboards. It doesn't determine my worth as a human. But yeah, my wife's been super supportive through all that stuff.
I think one, that's awesome that she is.
Yeah.
But there's definitely some addicting nature to, I think, all of it. I mean, seeing your own
Yeah.
personal improvement, like you put in hours to practice, and so actually seeing that follow through is very addicting. And then the chat element, seeing
Totally.
your metrics go up potentially, and just in general, there's a lot of up. It just hits all the dopamine all at once.
Yeah,
So I could see
you
the
kind of said it
concern almost
perfect.
too of just like, hey, he might be addicted to this, and there is some validity to it.
No, there really is. Like, there is a serious dopamine hit, and most speedrunners know it's like when you've been practicing and you've been grinding and you finally get like the run, and it's like, oh my god, this is the big PB I've been looking for. There's such a like dopamine response there that it does become addicting. And I think what gets harder and what burns out a lot of speedrunners, myself included, is the better it's kind of like when you're an RPG character. Like, the higher level you get, the more work you have to put in
Oh
for
yeah,
for like
exponentially.
yeah, like exponentially more work for exponentially less results at the end. Like, like
Yeah.
when you're first starting speedrunning, like I'll use Hollow Knight as an example just because that's my game. Like, your first any percent run's like a 50-minute run. Your next run, you shave 6 minutes off, and and then like you shave minutes off just by like not dying and remembering the route. And then it gets to a point where you're like, I'm practicing like 10 times more time than I'm spending doing runs to save like 3 seconds in this one section. Like, if that. And it starts to wear you down a bit because, like, for me, there was this point where, it's kind of where I am now, where I kind of made a decision to myself, like, it's okay to like not be top 3 anymore. It's okay to not be top 5. Like, I can just enjoy the game. Like, I don't need to walk away hating this game, feeling some sort of hatred for it, or regrets or whatever. Just, it's okay in life to just do things as a hobby and have fun, um, and not stress yourself out about them.
Which I feel like that's got to be easier said than done. I think especially
Very.
once someone has a taste of the top, it. I mean,
Yeah.
it seems like you've come to terms with it now, but was that a bit of a struggle?
Honestly, yeah, it was a huge struggle for me, and like even now, I've been running any percent again, and I'll be fully transparent that a big part of that is I'm like, man, there's way too many people I've never heard of on the leaderboards in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
I got to get some spots back. Yeah, um, but it's I guess the hardest part to come to terms with is you look at all the time that somebody invests into getting to the top of their speed game, getting good, and being near the top for so long. It's like, well, a year later, 2 years later, what do you have to show for like those 3,000 hours you have in this video game that you played, right? Um, and that was difficult for me to come to terms with for a while. Just like, I spent all like, imagine, I would often joke with myself, like, man, imagine if I spent all this time doing literally anything else in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but at the same time, I think that the way I kind of have healthily come to terms with that is just, I really enjoyed it, and I still do. Like, even though I don't care to be, like a tip top Hollow Knight runner anymore, I still really enjoy the community. I enjoy hanging out with people. I still like running the game, even though I'm not practicing, 6 hours a day anymore. I just have fun doing it. I know earlier you mentioned, there's it's streaming is really fun. Like, having people in chat talking with you, interacting. Like, I've made so many friends and met so many cool people all around the world from streaming. Um, like, that's a cool thing I never want to give up, no matter what game I'm playing or how good or not good I care to be at that game. There's just a lot there to unravel that I think is really interesting.
It's kind of funny because this is very much the exact kind of, I don't want to say existential crisis I've had, but a little bit of just hesitation with wanting to actually commit to streaming and running, and which it seems like everybody kind of does. Is I've been on and off, granted, but for 3 years now, and now that pandemic's over, I am changing my career path, stuff like that.
Right.
Is this still the direction that I want to head? And, I talked it through with quite a few people, and I can very honestly say that the connections I've made and stuff like that, 100% worth it.
Absolutely,
There's
yeah.
so much like sense of community within, I mean, in general. I mean, I've hopped around different games, stuff like that, and now just I would say as a streamer, even like the same people hang out, stuff like that. It's very fun.
Yeah, and I think speedrunning in particular, one of the coolest things about speedrunning communities, not even just Hollow Knight, but I see this, it's kind of universal in speedrunning, is that for many people, yes, it is a competitive activity, but it's also collaborative simultaneously. Like, people are, like even people that really want to be the tip top, like they want world records or whatever, those are often the people, not always, but often the people most active in like the community Discord, sharing strategies, talking with people, helping share knowledge and stuff. And I think that's really cool. Like one example I'll give is, for a while I was like top 3 90%, and then I got so burnt out I took like 4 or 5 months off the game. And a lot of that time actually, a lot of people know a speedrunner Guanqui. She's an incredible, how like
Oh yeah,
definitely has
she's
made her
insane.
own name for insane at the game. And back at this time when I was like top 3, she still had like a 35-minute PB, like 34-minute PB, which was good, but like nothing special for that time. And I would spend a lot of my time helping her. Like, hey, here's like how I do 2-cycle Umu. Here's how I set up this. And then I take a 6-month break from the game. I come back, she's second place or something, or pushing a world record. And I was able to go to her and be like, hey, can you help me catch, like, what are the new strats people are doing? What are the new like, what are the new discoveries people have made? And that back and forth relationship I thought was so cool. Like, just this idea that, like, even if you want to be competitive, even if you want to be at the top, it like, by giving back to the community, it'll come back to you eventually.
Oh
Like,
yeah,
if
for
I never,
sure.
if I never would have spent the time helping her, who knows if she would have gotten to the top to be in a position to come back and help me someday get to where I want to be. So I think relationships like that in speedrunning communities are, one, probably pretty common, honestly, and two, I think that's kind of the beauty of the hobby as a whole, just that competitive yet collaborative nature of how we approach things.
A bit of a double edge, and I guess now I can say thanks to you as well. But it's actually
Oh.
Wonky kind of showed me just how much practice you really have to do into things, because I think I was very much I like streaming more than I did running. So
Yeah.
I'm just going to do runs, because nobody, like, not that many people anyway, I should say, like to watch the practice. And I don't
Yeah.
think I do constructive practice if I'm streaming. So it kind of showed me that, well, one, I just didn't want it enough. Like, the amount
Right.
of
Yeah.
hours that goes into things is just, I mean, you have to want it for sure.
Yeah, and I think it's like, what I wish I could say to a lot of people is, if you don't want to put in that practice to get to that point, that's totally fine.
Oh yeah,
Like,
totally fine.
it's totally fine to say, hey, I like where I'm at. I'm fine putting in this time and slowly getting better times. And that's totally fine. And I think a lot of people, myself included for a while, just felt like, no, I need to be doing everything to keep up with the people at the top. I need to be stressing myself and pushing myself. And then I just ended up hating the game. I ended up hating like, it was no longer a fun hobby anymore. So I think it's really important to be able to take a healthy look at how much time, because like you said, like, the top runners, the amount of time they're putting in just to get it to, pushing their strats, building their consistency, is just insane. Like, I watch I watch Skate King all the time, just because, like, I think he's the most talented Hollow Knight player that's ever existed. I
Ooh,
really,
big kudos right there.
I seriously believe that. I in terms of just like skill and movement, I think there's a lot of components that make a good speedrunner, like mental. Hollow Knight has movement sections, boss fights, all these things. But like, just when I look at just raw talent and skill, I think Skate's insane. I don't think anybody else is doing what he's done. And he has the times to show that as well. But when I look at people joke with me when I came back to Hollow Knight, it's like, oh, are you gonna push for 31? You're gonna try and get 31? And I look at the amount of work that people like Lep and Skate and Guanqui and all those people put in. I'm like, absolutely not, because like, there's no shot. Because, like, I know, like, watching those people, I see what it takes to get to that point, and I respect the hell out of it, and I know it's not for me. I know it's not for me, and I'm fine just having fun, chatting with people, getting small PBs here and there, and not doing a whole ton of practice and just enjoying the game.
So nowadays, would you say you're going for a personal goal or more of a competitive leverage to beat those new names you haven't seen?
That's definitely part of it. There was definitely a part of me that man, it like when I took such a big break from the game for a while, like there's definitely an ego part of it because I'm a competitive person. I just am. That's who I am as a human being. I always want to be like I was at a point where for a while I think most people would have considered me out of active runners like top 3 to top 5 overall, like across all categories, whatever. Like there was a time where I think most people would have said that. And I was okay slipping a little out of that, but it got to a point where I'm like, man, like a lot of new people come in the community, they don't even know my name. They haven't even heard me. And
Which, yeah,
like the egotistical side, like I don't like that. Like I want to show, well, or there were runners who kind of knew me that were starting to catch up to my times. And there was a part of me, it's like, I want to hop back in and show these people like, hey, like I still got it. I'm still a top runner. Like I still have the skills, even though I'm not putting in all the hours of practice. Like, I really wanted to just show people, hey, I was once a top player and I still got some skill here. And it felt really good to like last week or 2 weeks ago, I think it was like I was de-rusting any percent for the first time in months and Hollow Knight in general. And I did like 3 no reset runs. And the third one was like 2 seconds off my PB. Like from when I was really, yeah, I was like, okay, like honestly, that was crazy to me too. Like I didn't expect that at all. And getting that close to my PB after such a big break, that kind of inspired me. Like, let's get back into this game a bit. Like I can really, really push my times down lower. So I guess I say all that to say that my desire to play the game and speedrun, it used to feel more like a chore where I have to do it today or I'm going to get rusty and I've got to put in this work. And now it's kind of just like, hey, I go through flows, I go through ups and downs where sometimes I really want to play the game and other times I don't really care to. And I kind of nowadays, I just let that flow happen naturally instead of pushing myself like it's a job or something. Like I'm okay. Just today, I don't feel like playing. Tomorrow, I don't feel like playing either. I'll go 3 days in a row not playing. And I just try and not let myself get stressed out about it.
That seems really healthy, which granted is probably, easy to do in some ways, but it seems like if it gives you intrinsic joy to still run, then it makes sense to do it for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I think I think especially with high level speedrunning in any game, the mental aspect of things is so important. Like you need, especially in longer categories, like you really need to be able to hold your mental, stay calm, and just make sure you're still having a good time throughout the run. Like without naming any names at all, there are many runners I watch who like I can tell the moment that their run died, like 10 minutes before it died. Just because they're starting to get super verbally frustrated and they're like swearing at the game, getting angry. I'm like, this run's dead right now.
The tilt is real.
Like once you go on tilt, like it's real hard to come back from that. And it's funny because I found a lot of that. I found a lot of my best runs or runs that go the furthest on really good paces are runs where like I'm not even looking at my time. Like I don't hide my timer. Like I'm not even looking. I don't care. I'm just having a good time. I'm talking to chat. I'm laughing. I'm smiling. And those are my best runs. It's and I don't think that's a coincidence at all. I think that there's something to be said for just enjoying the game, not getting stressed, not letting small things tilt you.
There's now this might sound cliche to anybody that is also a melee player, but I've heard anyway. I am slightly competitive, but I'm not someone that pushes himself to be like the top at anything. But what I hear, especially when you get to a top level of, fighting games, something like that, mentality is a huge thing. And what I hear a lot of people go to actually to like help with that. I mean, obviously, if you're, up there, you go to a sports psychologist. But a lot of people read like the inner game of tennis. And somehow it's been very applicable in the melee world, which I imagine there's got to be a large crossover into just speedrunning and anything that you're really competitive with. And it focuses on that, the mental side of things and how to kind of control that.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting that they relate it to tennis.
So recommendation to the listeners.
Yeah.
Maybe I haven't read it. I don't know. I don't know how to read.
Yeah, and for me, a big part of the mental aspect, I I could be wrong on this, but I feel like a lot of people that are very, very good IL runners and don't see their times translate into like full runs, because I think the mentality is so dramatically different between running ILs and doing full runs. Like if you're doing an IL, like it's maybe in Hollow Knight, most of the splits are somewhere between like 1 to 2 minutes roughly,
Mm-hmm.
for most categories. If you're grinding ILs over and over again, like you're just focused on that one section. You're doing it 100 times in a row, so you're mentally prepared for every little thing that's going to happen because you've been focused on just that for a while. You're probably doing some riskier strats that you wouldn't really do, and then it's really hard to take that mentality and translate it to, man, I'm in late game right now. I have never had a pace this good. I'm really nervous. I'm shaky. Like, and like I haven't been grinding this one section for the last 35 minutes. Like I just got to go in. I get one shot at it. Um, so I think there's a lot of mental training that goes into being a top runner as well as the technical ability. At least for me, like even when I was close to the top of most of the categories I ran, I was never really known for having like crazy IL times or impressive sum of bests. But like I was really consistent, and I always like to stay calm and just do strats that I know I can do under pressure.
Yeah.
Um, one of my favorite sayings was, if people pay attention to Celeste speedrunning at all, you'll know Isaac Tay, who's a really, really skilled runner. He had any percent world record for a little bit. Um, and one thing I heard him say on stream once was like, if I'm not going to do a strat on pace, then I'm not going to do it at all. And I thought that was really, really interesting to a good perspective. It's like, yeah, if you're going to start changing up the way you do things just because you're on a good pace, I think you're almost setting yourself up more for failure. Because I
Mm-hmm.
think you want to stick to, like, I think you want your, I mean, anybody who's played sports, well, if you've heard similar stories or similar advice, that you want your game prep and how you play your game to be as close to practice as possible,
Practice
just
as
so
you
you're
play.
prepared. Yeah, practice it exactly. Practice like you
Mm-hmm.
play. Which, funny enough, people ask me like, "Oh, why do you when you fight Hollow Knight, why do you start on the left side?" And the reason is, when I practice fights to time them, I C dash into the room from the left side, and that's where I start the timer. So like, well, when I'm practicing, I'm starting on the left side. So even though it might be ever so slightly more optimal to start on the right side, it's going to lose me time because all of my practice is starting on the left side. So I'd rather just have that consistency.
Oh yeah, for sure. That's actually one of the major things that granted it's been a long time, but that tore me up with Beastin in any percent
Yeah.
was you do one thing slightly wrong, and then just the cycles of everything is like all just you're almost free ad-libbing it, and I was so bad at it. And plus you're on a pace, so you're like, I don't want to get hit, and then
And it's the end of the run.
it's the end of the run. It's awful. So I didn't like it personally, for sure. But I
Yeah,
could
yeah.
see definitely how people do get good at it.
Yeah, and I think a game like Hollow Knight that has so much RNG, it can be very frustrating, but I also think it makes the run more interesting. Like I think, when you look at a game like Celeste where there's no RNG and everything's the same the whole time, um, I think that's awesome because there's a sense of knowing like whatever time I got is the time I earned and the time I deserved because
Mm-hmm.
everything is completely in my hands. And while that isn't always necessarily true in Hollow Knight, like, you can get screwed over by boss RNG or enemy positions can be bad. I do like that it adds another element of skill, and that you kind of have to know how to react to different patterns and different positions of things. Or if this boss gives you this attack, you have to have prepared responses and stuff. And I actually like that in a speed game. Like,
I do too.
some people who have watched older streams of mine, when I'm tilting out of my mind, can probably see me raging about like, oh, I hate all the RNG in Hollow Knight. And I think that's standard in a game that, like, Umu can just take your entire run away from you. But no, like, in a real sense, I think that it makes the run more exciting because you drop into a room transition, you're like, well, I don't know what's about to happen. I need to read the room really quickly and react to what I'm seeing. And I love that stuff, honestly. I think it makes for a much more unique playthrough.
Yeah, and definitely different strokes for different folks. I personally, I need the dynamic, like you have to kind of think while you're doing it, which granted, not saying that, going through some formulaically you don't have to think, but I would just get very bored, and that's why I've chosen the games that I do choose to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, and even with with RNG and a lot of things, people have gotten so good at Hollow Knight that they've kind of broken down, like, how do I word it? Like with certain rooms with enemy positions, it's like this enemy can spawn. It's not completely like they could spawn anywhere. It's like this enemy could spawn in one of 3 positions here, and top runners just know, like, without like complete, just like without even having to think, the moment their eyes see position X, they know exactly what the movement is. Like they practice it so much, it's almost thoughtless. And I think that's a really cool part of speedrunning, just knowing pattern recognition, having your responses prepared, and having to think a little bit on the fly. Like I like that element a lot in a speed game.
Something that I've seen that's fairly consistent, and you bringed up how you were just 2 seconds off of PB. I think this is very cool, and it shows that it's a skill where someone can derust after a long time, and not necessarily 2 seconds, but I would say within 2 to 3 minutes of their PB, which, for a lot of people, they still haven't even broken that ceiling yet. And I think once you kind of break a certain barrier, you tend to keep hitting that barrier. So it's just showing like there is a skill to it.
Absolutely. Like, I think especially in all speed games, I think minute barriers are a huge mental thing. Like,
oh, definitely.
Yeah. And one thing I've kind of tried to I was talking about this last night on my stream, actually, as coincidence would have it. I think one way I try and think of minute barriers to get rid of that mental barrier is I kind of just, I'm going to sound way too like philosophical here, but I think I kind of tell myself that the concept of like seconds and minutes is somewhat arbitrary in a sense. Like, what if we used, I don't know, I made the joke last night on my stream, like, what if we used a unit of time measurement called Alex's, and like an Alex was 2.5 seconds, then like I don't know, the equivalent of like a sub 33 in your run would be, I don't know, like 312 Alexes. It's like no one's stressed about the 312-second barrier. It's like, so I know it's goofy, but I try and think of it like that. Like what is so special about this minute barrier? Like, why does it?
So I very conceptually, I like the idea that.
Yeah.
I have no idea. How do you internalize that idea though? Because I find myself stuck at like minute barriers very hard.
Honestly, I do and I don't simultaneously. Like, I try and tell myself that, but admittedly, as human beings, we talk about that dopamine response. Like, it is very, very hard to resist that urge of like, there is something to be said in Hollow Knight about like, oh, this runner has a 32. Like, that's a real thing. That's a like, this person has a 31. Like, I even know runners that have like 3301, 3302 PBs, but like, it's like the fact like they can't say like I have a 32. But like when you look at it conceptually, like there's probably negligible, if any, skill difference between somebody with like a 3259 PB and a 3301. But just seeing that 1 minute lower, there's definitely an element to that. So I guess to internalize it for myself, I kind of just I tell myself what I just ranted about, and again, the fact that, hey, if lowering my time by 2 seconds doesn't really mean I'm a better runner, or it doesn't mean anything.
True.
That but again, it's I say this now sitting here comfortable in my chair, but damn, there's an element of like when I'm in the middle of a run and I know I'm about to break a big barrier, where my hands start shaking a little, I start getting sweaty, and I got to mentally talk myself down from it.
That's why we do it though, for the raw emotion. Just
yeah, that's right.
The ups
yeah,
and downs.
yeah. Like anytime I've broken a minute barrier in a category, and I stream all of my runs. So I like the element of like, I would almost be really sad if I got a big PB and people weren't there to see it.
Yeah.
Like, I want to share that moment. I want people there. I want to be hype. I want all the energy.
Especially once you have it. Oh.
Yeah. And I know some people do offline runs and then they like, they replay it and commentate over it on stream, which I think is cool. I understand why people do that because chat, as cool as it is distracting. It's a distracting factor when you're running. But it's just not for me. I want that live, real time energy and hype of I just got this big PB and there's all these people here. Like I love that feeling about running.
There's ups and downs, and I don't know how I feel. Most of the time, I think it's more of a stress relief than it is a stressor. But how do you feel having chat? Do you think it can help, like, almost put you in a flow state if you're able to like
Yes.
mentally separate everything? Or
Yeah, for me, totally. Like, one thing I catch myself doing a lot when I'm running is I'll be, I'll just be running, having a good time, reading chat, talking to people, whatever. And then I'll look at my timer. I'm like, man, I'm on a sick pace right now. I should stop paying attention. I should stop looking at chat. I should focus. And I kind of actually, like, for me, what I've learned to do is I talk myself out of that, actually. I'm like, you were doing really, really well when you were just casually hanging out, chatting, relaxed. Why would you change that now? Like, why would you change up what was clearly working for you? Because the moment I say, like, all right, guys, I'm not looking at chat anymore. I'm gonna focus. Now I'm stressed. Now I'm anxious. Like, no,
yeah,
just keep
adds to
doing
it for
Yeah,
sure.
100%. So I think there's something to be said about that flow state you just mentioned, where it keeps me. It almost distracts me from getting in my own head when I read
Yes,
chat
that's
and
a
talk to
that's I
people.
couldn't think of how to phrase, but that's exactly what it
Yeah.
is. Yeah.
Yeah, it keeps me from getting stuck in my own head and talking myself into a stressed or high pressure state. But there, no matter how relaxed I am, I've just found that as a person, when it's late in a run and I'm on a sick pace and things are going well, there's always a part of me that's like, "Come on, you're a little nervous. Like, don't try and
hmm
fool anybody. There's a little anxiety going on here."
Which, I mean, it'd be incredible if there wasn't. I think that'd
Yeah,
be awesome if you could just, backseat it. Let me finish this up real quick. But that's human nature,
yeah. And I
which is
think
also
what
cool.
separates, yeah, because I think it's cool because I think what high performers in anything in life do, whether it's a sport or you're a musician or a speedrunner, is high performers know how to take that energy and use it for them instead of letting it bring them down. Like, if you're like, I don't know, like you're a guitarist in a band or something playing for 1,000 people and you're about to take a big guitar solo, like I think top performers know how to take all that nervous energy and put it into their performance. Whether it's speedrunning or you're an athlete or a speedrunner, athlete, musician, whatever you choose to
hmm
do with your life, you can channel that energy into a positive place that makes you better, instead of crippling you and bringing you down.
Now, you are a top runner, I would say. Do you think you've been able to channel that? Do you have that capability?
Yeah, no, I totally do. Like, especially, if you watch some of my PBs, like especially, I want to say it was my low percent PB, which is, I think, a year later now is still world record. I don't think anybody's touched that. Um, like, because I think there's something that comes from when you've been grinding for a specific time, or this is going to contradict what I just said, but when you're grinding for a minute barrier and you've been going for a long time, I think viewers start to kind of get invested in the journey.
Oh,
Like, if
yeah,
you've been
100%.
if you've been yeah, like if you've been going for that, like I'm trying to get this 32 and it's been like 3 months of attempts and you've gotten close and then failed and you've gotten some other close attempts and failed, people start to get invested. And I know this sounds so corny, but then when I'm streaming in those kind of moments, I can feel that energy. Like, it's almost like I can feel the energy from chat. Like, I can feel that they're hype with me. Like, they've been on
hmm
this journey with me. They've been through all these grueling losses and good paces that died to stupid things. Um, and I think for me, I kind of tell myself, like, man, I want to do it for the people that have been here for this journey. Like I want to give these people what they've been watching. Like, these people who have been invested watching me for weeks, hours a day, like they deserve this. And I kind of tell myself that instead of talking myself out of it. Um, I'm a people pleaser, if you can't tell, like
hmm
definitely an extrovert and a people pleaser. So there's an element to me that just that's kind of how I talk myself out of it. Just I want to give the people what they're here for.
You've got me immediately thinking back. I'm like, man. So I've run a few games at this point,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
there's almost a running. I'll call it a bit But my original game, I put a lot of time for like my whole first year of streaming. It was pretty much all I did. I played Crash 2 any percent, and I got like a 4402 or something, and I think I was like 4 seconds off of 10th place. So I was like, I want
Sure.
top 10. And for the longest time, I was like, give me top 10. And eventually, it didn't happen. So now, as more runners have come, I'm like 17th or something like that. And one of the bits is Cotton, who hangs out in my chat, has been a long time, and shout outs, will just be like, hey, don't forget, you're top 10 capable. I'm like, thanks.
Top 10 capable, yeah.
Appreciate that. And like, I didn't get it on that one, but who knows? We'll see what the future holds. I don't think so, but we'll see what the future holds.
Yeah, and I think that resilience of like being able to lose a run and hop back, that's such an important skill to have, like mentally.
Yeah. Now I'm gonna transition this over to you, and you almost you lined it up. You gave me an underhand slow pitch. Alex here is very humble and kind of skated over the fact that they're the world record holder for low percent in Hollow Knight. So what exactly is low percent, and are there any major misconceptions about the category?
Yeah, so first off, every time someone comes to my stream, I'm doing low percent, they immediately think like, oh man, is this the run where you kill birds for 40 hours? Like, a reference to Scurry, who is a very, very well-known content creator. They've been, running Hollow Knight and making content for a very long time. Scurry did what is called low percent true ending, which is killing Radiance with the lowest possible percent. And to do that category, which it's more of a meme category than it's more of a challenge run than an actual speedrun category.
Oh, I don't wish it on anybody.
Oh yeah. So yeah, for those who don't know, you have to sit there in a room killing enemies, hoping for essence drops for hours and hours. I'm sure the route has changed since then. But yeah, I'd say that's probably the biggest misconception about low percent, the category I do. The category I do is about 40 minutes, not 40 hours.
A bit different.
Quite a bit different, yeah. So low percent is just beating the game, like any ending you want. I mean, obviously we go for the very basic kill the Hollow Knight with no extra things picked up. So it's going for that ending with the absolute lowest completion percentage that we can as a community. So we don't get things like, but we don't fight Hornet ever, and we don't get dash. Which right there's a whole lot of crazy movement we need to do to get through the entire game without dash. I would highly recommend anybody, if you're bored, go to the speedrun.com boards, find my run, and just go look at how we get Crystal Heart. If you can imagine doing that room without dash, that's really fun.
Cursed.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool fireball skips we have to do because we need to get horizontal distance somehow. We don't get Shaman Stone. We can't kill Gruzmother, so Shade Skip is completely off the table because Gruzmother is a percent. So pretty much like low percent is just anything we can do in the game to keep the overall completion percentage lower, we have to do. It's non-negotiable. There's no way around it. Right now, the lowest humanly possible percentage we know of is 11%. I don't even know how I got into that category. I was just I think I thought it was cool to beat the game with barely anything equipped. Yeah, so what makes that category so hard then is on top of the fact that you don't have dash, you don't have a lot of movement. You're doing a number of boss fights with barely any equipment. Like we can't upgrade our nail, we can't get any charms. We can't really do anything to increase our power, and we have no movement really. So some of the bot like Watcher, I mean, a lot of people are afraid of any percent Watchers. Well, do that without Shaman Stone and dash now, and tell me how you feel about that. So it's a fun category, and I think I could probably, like, if I really dedicated to the grind, like really hardcore, I think there's another like 30 seconds to be saved in that run. But I think a lot of people too have a misconception that an unoptimized run is a bad run. And I don't necessarily think that's true because it really depends on the difficulty of a category.
Do see how that could very much discredit from the work of the runner for sure.
Right. Like, and I'll put it this way, like to brag for myself a little here.
Hey, you've earned it, I
recent.
think. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've earned a little brag or two. But like somewhat recently, within the last year, there was a skip found in running low percent for current patch, that makes the route for current patch save, I want to say, somewhere between 40 to 60 seconds on the route I did, and still nobody's come within like 50 seconds of my PB.
Oh wow.
So yeah, so like it's just a hard category. Like I'm impressed by anyone who can just finish a run of low percent. So to get it optimized then is a whole different story. And I think the run I have is pretty darn optimized too. Like it's not a bad run. I don't think even today's tip top runners, I don't think they could just come in and casually take that record from me. Putting the challenge out there to any of you that want to. Like,
Now it
I'm
sounds
throwing
like
the challenge out there.
you said it like a year ago. Are you happy with where it's at, or do you still want to improve upon it?
I'll probably I want to improve a little. Like there were one or two routing changes found since I stopped running the category that are applicable to the patch I run on. That save a bit of time. I'd like to come back because not even just as a competitor, but as somebody who cares about the community and the integrity of the runs, it feels very weird to me that if somebody wanted to learn low percent, the first place they're going to go is like, okay, like let's watch world record.
Always.
And world record doesn't even do the optimal route currently, like that. So like it's
yeah, true.
It's like I just feel wrong about that. Like for the sake of the community, like the world record should do the best route.
Which, yeah, granted it's a little bit dated, but the average person isn't going to be like, hey, is world record the best thing to do? And I very much have found myself all just like, okay, let's see what number one does, and go from there.
Yeah. No, 100%. So I mean, that's how I started speedrunning too. I started speedrunning any percent current patch back in early 2020 when Homophody had the record. It was like a 36-minute run or something like that, 34 maybe, 35, somewhere in the mid 30s, which it's way lower nowadays. But yeah, I'm just gonna watch the world record on speedrun.com and copy what this person does.
Would you like someone to actively push it, get that competitive nature to almost fuel you more?
Honestly, yeah, I really would. And even when I was really grinding for world record, well, I mean, so I've held world record in that category for I'd say 90% of the last like 2 years. Because like when I started running that category, world record, I want to say it was like a mid 44, and then I pushed it to a 43, and I was like, okay, cool. Like we talk about this again, new minute barrier, it's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And then I stopped running it, and then Constructive Cynicism, who if people don't know who he is, like absolute pillar of the Hollow Knight speedrunning community. Yeah. Like I cannot. It's impossible to overstate how much he has done for the community and for runners and learning strats and movements and just technical details about the game. So he took world record then. And then after, like, I was focused on any percent and all skills and other things. And I eventually decided I want to come back and try and take my record back. So what I did was I spent about 2 months, I want to say. I didn't do any runs. I went through the entire ComSob sheet, and like room by room, I labbed everything imaginable. Because the thing, like with low percent, without having any movement, like we've got to squeeze all the time save we can out of every little corner we can cut. And I went and I swept the entire ComSob sheet, except for one split that was shared with any percent, and that was just too good. I'm like, I'm fine not having this one. Yeah, it was like, I think it was like entering green path where I'm like, so we just used the ComSob split from any percent. I'm like, no, it's too good, they can have it. And so I did that for a while, where I just like, I lowered my sum of best like crazy, and I'm like, okay, I want to do a run. Like I just want to do a run. I haven't done a full run in 2-3 months. I've just been labbing everything. Let's see what happened. In my first run, I just do a no reset, high 42. And I'm like, oh my god, I don't even think that was that good of a run. Like I fell in some places, whatever. I'm like, shit. Like I want to keep pushing.
The practice means something,
right?
For sure.
No, absolutely. And just that mentality of I'm like, wow. I like my end goal was like a high 42. Like just breaking into the 42-minute barrier. When I saw how easily I got that, I'm like, let's keep pushing for a 41. So
it's always a higher mountaintop. That's what I know. Everybody always wants to bite more. You're never satisfied.
Oh yeah, I'm sure anyone who speedruns can relate to this, but there are so many times where I told myself, man, if I can just get X time, I'll be happy and satisfied and done. Then you get that time and you're elated and everything is great. Like, oh my God, I'm the greatest runner ever. My Twitch chat was going crazy. I'm awesome. And then like you get off your stream and 10 minutes later, you're just sitting there in your living room like, man, that run actually sucked. Like I made a lot of mistakes.
If I would have just got lucky with Umu.
Yeah, right. Like, I would have gotten better RNG here and I fell here and lost 6 seconds. Like, and then you're like, okay, never mind. I'm getting back on my horse. I'm going for it. So yeah, I think, yeah, I don't remember how we got talking about this, but that's kind of my history as the low percent world record holder. I think I still have any percent Steel Soul world record on patch 1221. I know I don't have it overall anymore. There was a new skip found that's only done on like 1.4 plus patches that I think someone took my time. That time I don't care as much about. That sounds kind of bad to say, maybe.
No, I get that.
Yeah,
I've seen current patches like the slope ball and stuff. I was like, I have no interest in ever learning that or doing that.
Yeah, never. I'm not gonna do it. I just don't care. But like, so for having the 1221 world record in that category, which I think I still do, like nobody really runs that category. I got the world record in like 3 days of just running. I didn't practice the category once. I kind of just ran it a few times. Like, okay, there it is. But low percent, like I mean, you talked about would I want someone to come be competitive with me to push me? And like, yeah, I totally would, because it was very hard to keep pushing myself when it's like I already have world record and nobody, like, especially at that time, no one was within a minute of me. Because like, admittedly, it's not a super popular category, but people do run it. People care about it. Like it's definitely
it is a main leaderboard category, which is
it's a main leaderboard
like,
category.
I think show indicative of its validity. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, and I think like even if a category isn't super super popular, for me it was like I don't want to just get a time that any other good runner who decides they want to run low percent is going to come along and just beat on like their like within 2 weeks of running it. Like I want to put a time up that withstands the test of time. Like I wanted a legacy there. Like anytime somebody talks about low percent, my name comes up, and hopefully I've done that.
I think, I mean, being number one definitely helps, but I would think that
it helps,
you definitely have.
Yeah, definitely. And as far as I knew that a lot of the other top runners at the time, like Lep, Skate wasn't quite at the top at this time. Like he was a newer-ish runner, but like Lep, Marcus, other people, I knew they had no interest in running the category, but I was trying really hard in the Discord, like, hey, would you guys at least be interested in like maybe grinding some of the comm sobs, like just helping push,
please,
like helping push those times down, because it was very hard to know what, like when I got a new comm sob for a split, like is this a good time? I don't know, because there's not really anybody else grinding splits right now, so it was hard to tell. So yeah, again, I know a lot of people didn't want to run the category, but I at least wanted people to. Like we go back to that collaborative yet competitive nature where I'm like, I was essentially lobbying for people like, hey, come help me push this cat. Even if you don't want to be the one running it, please come help me and stuff. Like, and there are actually little like certain room movements I do that I got from talking with like other top any percent runners and all skills runners, that just, you know, just having another set of eyes to look at a room, like, hey, like, have you tried doing it this way instead? Is that any faster? Just having more brains solving a problem, more eyes looking at something, that stuff really helps.
So overall, which category do you think you've put the most time into?
Any percent for sure.
Like not even close, or
no, not even close. No, and any percent overwhelmingly. And it doesn't surprise me. Any percent always holds a special place in my heart, because in most games, any percent is kind of like the pure speedrun category. You know, it's like just beat the game, like no other restrictions, no arbitrary requirements, just beat the game. And it was the first category I started running, and ultimately, like, I think most like for people who do care about notoriety and like having a legacy and all that, most people, and especially like Metroidvania games, I feel like most casual viewers who just casually enjoy speedrunning, they're looking like, who are the top any percent runners? It's either any percent or like the full completion. Like you look at like Super Mario 64, like 120 star is obviously very popular, like the full completion. Even in Hollow Knight, like 112 is a wildly popular category.
People do tend
Like,
to love completion categories as
oh man,
from a spectator perspective.
I've joked for a while that like if you ever want to get Twitch partner as a Hollow Knight streamer, just do 112. Like it's
yeah,
like
it definitely wasn't my goal.
Yeah, like just consistently
then I realized
do
you have
112.
to run 112, which is
yeah, you have to. Yeah, I mean, other people have gotten partner running other stuff, but yeah, it's the biggest content creators, or I should say, I guess, speedrunners, most well-known speedrunners to casual viewers in Hollow Knight are mostly 112 runners, like Monstah. Monstah is probably, I would say he's probably the most well-known speedrunner overall in Hollow Knight, maybe outside of like Fireborn. Because obviously Fire's made a huge name for himself as a content creator as well as a top speedrunner. But you know, those two people definitely
I'm not gonna lie,
like,
Monstah inspires the hell out of me.
yeah.
The way he came in is just like, all right, I have my record there for forever. Oh, people are finally, you know, new strategies getting past it. I'm gonna come back for 2 months, practice every day for like 3 weeks, and then just destroy it. And then he's gone again. He's like, all right, I left my mark. See ya.
Seriously.
Come back when you guys have sub 3s.
he disappears into the void for like months at a time. And I think what's so impressive about Monstah is that he's been doing this for so long. Like I think he's been running since like 2017. He's one of the few like OG runner. Like him and Viz are like, I think the only two runners from like the real old guard that are still doing it at a top level. Like where things are just still going well. Like, man, he's an insane player. Like, I don't think I'm not saying it's impossible, but I don't know if a lot of casual players really can appreciate his boss fights in particular.
Oh,
like
yeah,
his boss fights are just like the small nuance he does with like positioning, where like certain decisions he'll make, like up slashing an enemy right next to him instead of side slashing it to keep it closer. Like that stuff's hard, man. Like you have to have really perfect positioning, like real precise movement on top of the fact that you're trying to fight a boss. Like, man, that stuff's really inspirational. Like I remember actually when my one of my cousins who got me into Hollow Knight, like shortly after I started streaming speedruns, Monstah was hanging out in my chat, and my cousin DM'd,
no
like,
way.
oh my god, like he's like, that's Monstah in your chat. Like they think he's like, I didn't really know who Monstah was at the time.
Coming
They're
back
like,
to our micro celebrities, yeah.
Yeah, seriously, like these people are big celebrities. Like, man, I remember there was one time I was watching one of Monstah's streams, and this one person kept spamming his chat, and he goes, hey, like, can you please stop spamming my chat? And the person was like, I am so sorry, but like I will forever remember this day as the day Monstah acknowledged me in chat. I thought it was so weird. I'm like, dude, he's just a guy. Like these are just people that speedrun. But like to some of these people, they're mini celebrities.
It's almost crazy to me too that like anytime Monstah goes live, and maybe it's because it's like the Clint Stevens effect where it's after so much time you're like, oh wow, Christmas, gimme, or something like that. But it's always popping. I'm like, I don't know why he wouldn't. I don't know anything about his personal life, so I can't speak to it. But I would think you have that sort of popularity. Why not try and pursue it as like a full-time thing? But maybe that's just my own desire for like content purposes or something. I don't know.
Yeah. And man, I'll say, like, obviously I know like nothing about being a full-time content creator, but what I can say is when I first started getting streaming, I used to push people really hard. Like, hey, if something funny happens in my stream or like I do something cool, clip it. And at the end of every month, I go through and I take all the like clips that I think are cool and I compile them into like a video, like RhinoFeeder June 2020 clip compilation.
Yeah.
I actually still have a few on my YouTube if you go way back. And man, those were like, I think like those were like 5-minute videos compiled all down. And they took me like hours to make, like to comb through my Twitch, get the clips, compile them down. Like I can like I stopped doing them. It was so much work on top of like my personal life. And I was just thinking like, man, that was the first moment I realized how much content creation can be a full-time job.
Oh yeah.
If not even way more hours.
Man, you know, this makes me so sad. So my YouTube's not like very big or anything like that, but I've made like 3 real videos of like oh wow, this is scripted. I think well like videographed, and there's of course always something to take away what I should have improved upon afterwards, but it's whatever. My number one video is something I made for about 5 people to see. Like, oh, what if we did like this strategy thing? But it for some reason picks up, and it's still picked up in the algorithm. And I was talking to like 3 people, like, here's like, maybe a baby version of the skip. And it popped off, and it has like 11K views. I'm like, son of a bitch! I put so much effort in the other things. This was a straight up just raw recording, like no camera, just like.
That's so funny.
So yeah, you could go like over here, just do this. I turn this on, it makes it easier for me, and I'm like, this is no effort. Come on, let me be rewarded for my effort, please.
Yeah, and I do think that like to blowing up as a content creator, you can do all of like you can try and manipulate the algorithm all you want. You can try and put a lot of work into content, try putting out consistent content. I am fully convinced there is also a heavy element of luck involved in all that.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
There's just an element of luck. Like sometimes something like you put the right thing out at the right time to the right people and just blew up on Reddit or something, and now you're like internet famous. But
I used to think of streaming almost as buying a lottery ticket every time you hit go live, because like, hey, maybe you'll get rated that day, it'll be good. And some days it'll just be average another day clocking in. But I mean, there's so much wrong with that. I don't even need to unpack that. But
oh man, like when I first started getting into streaming, I mean, I'll own this entirely. Like there were times where if like a big Hollow Knight streamer was live and I could tell they were getting close to ending, I was like, oh shit, like I'm gonna quickly go live and hope they raid me.
Oh yeah,
and it would work sometimes too. Like I would get away with it. Like there's a heavy element of just. I'll say when I was at back when I was doing the biggest numbers I did on Twitch, like I was probably averaging like somewhere between 40 and 50 viewers a stream. What it really came down to was consistency. Like every single day I was live at the exact same time for the exact same schedule, like Monday through Friday, like 6 p.m. to 8:30 p.m., 9 p.m. every day. And that gave me a lot of success. But I mean, as anybody who's an adult listening to me say that schedule is probably thinking like that's not sustainable.
Yeah,
like it's especially on top of a full-time job and everything. Like it's really unsustainable to do that. And I burnt out hard, but
I
that
can't do it.
consistency
Yeah,
in schedule helps.
Like it's very much known that consistency and doing it just same time, letting people know like this is what you do. It's so hard. I tried for like a couple weeks one time, even just, all right, it's gonna be 7:30, I'm going live, like here's the Discord thing, let me preset a schedule, this is what we're gonna do. And I made it like 3 days, I think, and I'm like, sorry I'm late, oh I gotta cancel today. But it's just because life, and I think I just again in the case of I didn't want it that much. It's like I want to enjoy the things that I want to enjoy, and I'm not gonna force myself to do something for the sake of it.
Yeah. And I like all this said, I can totally see how it's a full-time job for some people. Like,
yeah,
like much like, like an office job, like you're on a schedule. You have to, you have people paying subscriptions. They're not going to keep paying subscriptions if you're not providing content. All these things to take into consideration. And there's so many different, like nowadays, especially like there's YouTube, there's TikTok, there's Instagram Reels, and like the people who are really successful, they're pushing content daily on like all those platforms, and kudos to them. I couldn't do it. I just like,
that's
like
the dream. You get big enough that you can just make somebody else do the hard work.
Someone,
you just
right?
Yeah, you just be the face.
It's hard to get there. And
I think it's one in a
of,
million for sure.
Yeah, it's so rare. Like it's hard to explain because like most people who aren't really into streaming, speedrunning, etc., they know the big names. Like they know who Ninja is, they know who Dr. Disrespect is. Like these people getting thousands of viewers. It's really hard to explain to those people that if you're a streamer consistently getting like 20 to 30 viewers, that's really good.
Oh yeah, you're in the top 1%.
Yeah, if like
analytically
you're
anyway,
that's really, really, really good. Like that's damn good. So I try and keep that all in the perspective, along with the fact that again, like for me, it is, and I always want to be just a fun hobby. I don't want it to be something that stresses me out or causes grief. But at the same time, it's also not fun streaming to nobody. Like,
Yeah.
I mentioned before, like primarily I'm a Hollow Knight speedrunner, and that's like 99% of my followers follow for Hollow Knight content. And there was that few months of break where like I was streaming mostly Destiny or Bloons. I mean, there were times I'd stream for 2 hours, get like 3 total messages in my chat. And as much as I say I don't care and it's a hobby, like that can be disheartening sometimes too. It's like, oh
Oh
man,
yeah.
people don't actually enjoy me and my content. They just want Hollow Knight. I had to get over that real quick and just kind of accept, yeah, that's the reality. I'm an internet stranger to these people. Like they're here for the Hollow Knight content.
Oh, it's definitely it's really hard, and I mean I've switched games a couple times. Which granted, I think Hollow Knight in this, I'm not saying it's some cheat code for streaming or anything like that, but it is a very perfectly sized medium for smaller streamers. I think since it's not oversaturated, but it also has a loyal fan base, so it helped me grow a lot. I think as a streamer. But I was very scared because I just played it casually after I was like kind of burnt out of my other speed game, and then I really liked the game, so that's when I learned the runs and stuff.
Yeah,
and it helped my
I
stream
think
a lot.
you kind of hit the nail on the head there. I think because Hollow Knight's really in that like perfect middle ground where there's a big enough community where you are going to get people watching you, but it's not so big that you have a ton of competition to get any viewers.
And
Like
people like
it's
first
really in that
playthroughs
sweet
and stuff
spot.
too.
Yeah, first playthroughs are great. Like even as you might find this funny, but like even as a speedrunner who has beaten the game countless times, close to like thousands of hours, I like watching random people on Twitch do their first playthroughs. And like I'm not the guy sitting there backseating like, oh, do this. Like, I usually just lurk, or I might say, hey, good luck or something. But I'm not like I'm a speedrunner. You should go find me. Like I'm not that kind of guy. I genuinely enjoy just seeing how someone who isn't tainted by losing 7,000 runs enjoys the game. Like just that childlike wonder when they find a new area to go explore or something. It's like, man, I would do anything to have that back.
I don't know if you caught this, but it cracked me up. It was so stupid. But Viz for an April Fool's joke was like doing a first playthrough of Hollow Knight. Like he's probably got, I'm guessing, over 3K hours or something like that.
Yeah, he's got
if not
probably
more.
even more. Yeah.
And so to go through is like, oh, what are we doing here? Healing after like every hit and stuff like this. This is content gold. Thank you. Please keep it up. I watch it for way longer than I expected to. I was like, oh yeah, it's funny.
That was a solid April Fool's joke. Yeah, that's one of my favorite ones. But yeah, like I think it's funny when I casually played through the game, and I'm curious to know if other speedrunners feel this way about their game too. Like when I casually played through Hollow, like this is the greatest game ever made. I can't believe it's only like $10. That like the worlds are amazing, the enemies are cool, like the progression feels rewarding. And then I started speedrunning it for a while. I'm like, I hate this game.
Well, that's everybody, right? Everybody hates their own speed game.
It's like this game's poorly made. It's
but
so
you're allowed
glitchy.
To hate it.
Right, yeah. Like after thousands of hours, yeah, I now have the credentials to say why I hate the game and why I don't think it's good. But yeah, it's kind of what you said. It's like that. It's like that brotherly love where like I can make fun of this game, but you can't make fun of this game because this game's awesome, even though I talk crap about it 24/7.
So I mean, obviously you're a husband, you've got a full-time job, trying to push your own records, trying to stream. Do you watch speedrun related content at all? Like, I mean, GDQ is going on right now. Do you catch any of that?
These days I don't watch as much like general speedrunning. Just I used to be like, oh, I know that game, I'll go watch a speedrun. Nowadays it's most like it's probably kind of a chicken and egg problem, but most of the people that I follow on Twitch speedrun Hollow Knight just because the communities I've been involved in, how I've come up in the Twitch world. But no, I watch a lot of speedrunning content. Because one, it's just enjoyable. Like one thing I want people to take away is you don't need to be a top speedrunner or a top player of a game to get a lot of viewers and have a good time streaming. Like some of my favorite streamers are not even near the top of the leaderboards. And in fact, a lot of times,
like this one, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's why I'm on your show right now.
Hey.
But yeah, like there's a lot of times actually where I can't stand watching some top runners because they're at such a high level that like any small mistakes in the early game, it's like a reset. And like, especially with certain games, it's super, super high levels. It's like, I'm just watching the first 45 seconds to 2 minutes of this run on repeat for an hour and a half.
Love
and it's
me
almost like
some
not
green path reset.
right. Yeah, it's like it's at the point that like I've watched so much speedrunning content that like it could be my favorite streamer running my favorite category in Hollow Knight. I don't even care. Like I can't watch another Vengeful Spirit split. I can't do it. Like I've seen so many.
Yeah.
I've watched it so many times. I've played it so many times. Like, all right, I'm gonna go do something else for like 3.5 minutes, and I'll come back and watch when they're doing interesting things.
Yeah, I feel like, especially since it kind of transfers over to every category you do in Hollow Knight, the early game is so abysmal. It almost makes resetting like extra painful because it's like it's going through the motions again.
Yeah. Yeah. So on the topic of like early game resets, yeah, especially when you're playing the game, there's so many times where like I'll be doing a run, or doing runs on stream, and in my head I'm like, I will do anything right now just to get out of early game. Like I don't care if I'm 20 seconds behind. Like I want to play. I want to play the rest of the game.
Imagine wanting to play
like,
the game. Yeah.
yeah, I want to play the game. I've practiced and worked hard on this entire category, and I would like to get out of the first 7 minutes of the run, please. So.
Ugh.
Yeah, there's definitely an element. There's a mental element to early game resets, and I feel like it's once you get into those reset loops where you're just resetting over and over and over again. I feel like it can be very hard to mentally break out of them.
Oh yeah, which I feel like that's also hard too, to just be like, you know what, today's not the day, and calling it, especially if
Right.
it's like fairly early. But I think for longevity, of course, it seems like the smart thing to do. But how do you just be like, well, why don't I just play better?
Right.
And
Yeah, it's well, what frustrates me in my head when I'm in those moments is I'll know like I know I'm better than I'm playing right now, and there's a sense of embarrassment. Like there's 20 people watching me suck right now. Like I got to step it up. But yeah, there's definitely an element to me of like just playing the game, and that's kind of the approach I've taken since I've come back to since I've come back to Hollow Knight. It's just I don't really care what my time is. I'm just having fun playing the game. Like I've invested countless hours into being good at this game. I want to enjoy the fruits of my labor instead of being frustrated and just resetting and not enjoying myself.
you're the retiree on the golf course right now.
I know that's how I feel sometimes. Like I'm the old retired guy in the community. I'm old enough for it. That's how it feels. Yeah, like I joked on my stream one time that in a lot of communities, like in a lot of gaming communities, there will be a kid like 15, 16 years old who's just tearing everything up. Like I used to see this in StarCraft all the time. Like there'd be a kid like this kid's only 15 years old. I'm like, yeah, like I'm not impressed. Like they don't have a job, they don't have responsibilities. like you know what impresses me? Find me like the 45-year-old man with 2 kids, a full-time job, like find me that guy who's like at the top of his game. That'll
Yeah, that's
impress
so
me.
sick.
Yeah. Like that's the guy I want to cheer for.
Well, I mean, granted, it's still impressive for the
It
15-year-old,
is.
but I think a
No, for
lot
sure.
of I've almost pre-John myself, where I'm like, well, maybe if I was just younger, like maybe I could be better. And I try to not, but man, is it kind of easy to hold on to that? It's like, well, I had to go to work all day, which I've been unemployed for a little bit now, so I got no
Sure.
excuse. But
Yeah, I think for me, I've had to accept that as I've aged, I have to approach gaming differently. Because I've been like a quote gamer, I guess you can say, since I was like 6, 7 years old. Like there's pictures of me playing the original Nintendo at 3 years of age on my mom's lap, and as I've aged, like my hands, my wrists just can't take a lot of the same like constant use and wear and tear that they used to. Same with shooting games. Like I can definitely tell from when I was in like high school, early college, I don't have the same reflexes anymore. Like those are
yeah,
kind of dwindling away. So I have to find different ways to approach the game, and I kind of try and use like what I know mentally about things now, like just as a more grown, mature person. Hopefully I can handle my emotions and my mental state better than I did at 16, 17, 18. Now as like a 30-year-old man. And I think that aspect kind of gives me, I don't know if I'll say an edge, but it gives me some sort of benefit when speedrunning that I can just control myself a little bit better than I used to when I was younger, even though I don't have, the dexterity and the reflexes that a younger Alex probably would have.
If you've made it this far, hope you're enjoying the episode. While I have your attention, if you really like it, be sure to rate the episode 5 stars on Spotify or whatever audio platform you may be on. And hey, the channel moved to a YouTube channel all on its own, so it lost all of its subscribers. So try and give it a subscription. I'd appreciate it very much. Thank you. And now back to the episode. So why is it that you run 1221 or the down patch versus the latest patch of Hollow Knight? For anybody that may be looking at the leaderboard, seeing what it's split, what's the difference?
Yeah, so from a general perspective, just for people who aren't familiar with Hollow Knight, patch 1221 is just like it's probably the most stable patch that has a lot of the speed tech that speedrunners like and are accustomed to. Things like inventory dropping, lever skips, more recently discovered like wall cling storage tech, all things like that are just patched out of later patches of the game. So that's like the general overview of why a lot of people play on 1221. For me, one of the personal reasons I switched over to 1221 actually is if you go back to, when I first started playing the game, I was doing latest patch, and the competitive part of me was looking at all the other top, like the people that were considered top runners whose names kept coming up and like, who do you think is the best runner? And I'm like, they're all people running 1221. And I kind of just accepted I'm never going to get in those conversations if I don't run the same patch that like directly competes with these people to put up times that can be compared to. So it was a lot of my competitive side. Like I want to be taken. I mean, some people might disagree with this, but I think, especially in the modern state of Hollow Knight, where latest patch runners are like much more optimized now, and it's seen as a more legitimate patch. Back then, like no serious runners were touching current patch. Like it wasn't a thing. It was like a LOL, I'm a top runner and I'm just gonna go run current patch real quick to see what happened. Like it was just no, there was no competitive element to it back in 2020. So for me, that was the biggest reason I switched to 1221 back then. Is like I wanted to be taken seriously as a competitor. I wanted my times to be up there, competing directly with other top runners and get my name in that competitive ring.
Which the way I've seen it anyway as well, something that kind of helps is that inherently more tech just means a higher skill ceiling, which is very cool as well.
Yeah, that's a big part of it. Like,
but there's definitely ups and downs to both. Like I've done a little bit of both, but primarily focused on latest patch for honestly convenience. And
yeah, like latest patch definitely like it is a noticeable difference how much smoother the game runs on later patches. How much better the input handling is. Like the game is overall more polished and better. So it kind of stinks that we have to sacrifice a lot of those things to get some of our fancy speed tech, but it's a sacrifice most people just make.
Thank you for your service.
Someone's got to do it, right?
Job ain't done.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Have you ever thought about? Oh, sorry. You go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh,
I was gonna ramble. Don't even worry about me.
Have you ever thought about learning a new game? Like, do you ever think that your time might have come for Hollow Knight?
Honestly, yeah, all the time.
Anything stick out to you?
Not really. I mean, I'm sure I'll at least dabble with Silksong if it ever comes out, if it's even a real game.
Oh, right. I forgot this is a Hollow Knight interview. Are you going to speedrun Hollow Knight Silksong?
It's really fun.
The game you never played?
I have a bot in my like I wrote my own Twitch bot because I'm a software engineer professionally, and like I know there's a million bots out there that are way better than the one I wrote, but
just as a hobby, though, which is
I just wanted to write like just because it was a fun project. And I actually have it such that if anybody mentions Silksong in a message, it will sponge mock your text. If you know what that is, like
the capital, lowercase, capital, lowercase. Yeah.
It'll like if your message contains Silksong, it'll do that to your message and repeat it back in chat.
That's awesome.
So I mean, Celeste appealed to me for a while until I learned that it destroyed my hands. It's a very input intensive game. I've thought about getting into like Destiny speedruns maybe. I mean that's a stretch, but I've thought about it just because I have more hours in Destiny than any other game, like way more than Hollow Knight even. I just don't stream it as much because no one really watches it. But yeah, I think any game I speedrun at this point, it's gonna have to, just with where I am in life and the things I do, it can't be something that's gonna take like countless hours of time to even complete a run. It's got to be something short. It's got to be something enjoyable.
Yeah, which is hard to find as well.
It is, yeah. And like Hollow Knight kind of fits that mold for me, especially because I've already invested so much time. But no, I mean, I'm sure there's other games out there I'll toy with casually. Like no matter how much I tell myself or trying to walk away from a speed game, that competitive edge in me always just comes back, and I want to keep pushing myself. So.
Do you ever find now, especially as your time is more valuable as a resource, have you kind of shifted your mentality towards casually gaming at all?
Honestly, yeah. Like, and I think you can see that in a lot of like when I stream balloons and other things, like just very casual, relaxing games. Because you know, it's not even just the time element that I don't have time. That is part of it, but with the little time I do have to game, a lot of times I don't want it to be a stressful experience. Like I want it to be a like, man, I just worked all day, then cleaned up my dog's poop off the carpet, and had to go run to Home Depot to get stuff for my garden. Like with in those like 2 hours that I get to game before I go to bed, like I want to enjoy that. I want it to be relaxing and like wind me down. I don't want it to, I don't want to get more riled up and frustrated with that. So there's definitely an element to me that even, and I know this sounds weird, I've even thought more about like, are there more casual ways to speedrun Hollow Knight? Like, could I do more meme categories that are just fun and kind of treat them as like pseudo just chatting streams?
Yeah.
Like, just change categories, do something new. So yeah, to answer that question directly, yeah, I've totally thought about it, and casual gaming is definitely it's where I come from mostly. I mean, I've always been a competitive person, but yeah.
I've especially when I was like deep into very connected where I wanted to do runs and stuff like that, I found I couldn't just boot up a new game. Like I had a Steam library that was just building like, oh, new release, and like I'll get to him eventually. And it almost just like killed my drive to even want to. I was like, yeah, but I could, gotta practice P5, gotta
Yeah, seriously.
do whatever.
Like, my I think like, God, I want to say it was my birthday last year, like almost a year ago now or something. My brother got me Hades as like a gift. Still haven't opened it.
No,
like it's hard to explain to people, just like the stress of like starting a new game.
Yeah, it's hard, and then even more for me at least anyway. Maybe age, I don't know, but I don't finish anything. Is the problem I have too? Is like, all right, I've got a new piece of candy over there that I'm not touching. I haven't finished this one. Like,
yeah,
it's just too much.
I totally
and they're
get
all
where
good.
you're coming from.
But
right, there's so many good like Hades is an amazing game from everything I've heard. Like I should play it, but I'm just like every time I sit
for an
down,
hour.
Like,
I feel you there, because everybody tells me, oh, Hades is incredible, like one of the best games of the year. I'm like, I'll play it eventually. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we'll get around to it.
I did one run through, and like, yeah, it's okay.
Nice. I've heard it's a great game. I'll play it at some point. Yeah, I think casual gaming is I think it's important to speedrunning because it's really easy, especially if you're a very competitive runner, to get caught up in like the stress of having to practice and grind and work. And I think it's important to reconnect with that love for gaming that gets most people into speedrunning in the first place.
Yeah. Who would have thought you play the game long enough that you can't play any other game?
Seriously, right? It feels that way sometimes, Like I put in this investment, I've got to get my my worth out of it.
Now, broader speedrun sense, do you have any games that you like to watch the run for, but you would never run yourself?
Yes. Well, I shouldn't say never. I don't think I'd ever run it again, but I like watching Celeste runs. They're really cool.
Great.
I like watching Mario speedrun, like Super Mario 64. I love watching those. What other games? I actually still sometimes like watching like old school, like original Nintendo, like Super Mario Brothers or Super Mario Brothers 3 speedruns.
Oh yeah. Now talk about short and insanely optimized. Those are
it's crazy.
Like, someone just beat it by 2 milliseconds, like 200 milliseconds. Huge.
Like measuring the frames after the run just to see. Yeah, like there's man, there's this Super Mario Brothers 3 speedrunner Mitch Flower Power. It's crazy. I've been watching that guy probably for like 10 years
Oh
on Twitch.
dang.
Yeah, it's crazy. I like Super Metroid. I like watching Super Metroid
Mm-hmm.
speedruns. Like I watch Zoast
I
quite
take
a
you're a
bit.
friend of just Metroidvanias in general then.
Yeah, I really am. Like my first Metroidvania was probably Metroid Fusion, like in middle school for Game Boy Advance. That was a great game. Um, yeah, I think Metroidvanias are such good speed games because I think they have a lot of the elements I look for. And like, we talked about things like
You're getting that
a
lower
healthy,
percent to beat a game.
yeah,
and-
like there's different percentages you can go for.
Mhm.
There's max completion, lowest completion, any percent, all collectibles, stuff like that. There's that most of them have a healthy amount of RNG. We talked earlier about how that can add to a speed game. There's sequence breaks and skips that are just naturally a part of most Metroidvanias, and I think those make for really interesting speedrunning elements. Like with one thing I find with Hollow Knight especially is it's really, really exciting when there's a route change. When someone discovers like, oh, like, man, if we do this big route change, it actually saves 10 seconds over the old route or 15 seconds over the old route. In a lot of games, that's just like not ever an option. Like, at least not big route changes like that. Like there might be new strats or something, but it's like these are the levels of the game that you have to play through. Like there's no way around that. So I especially, man, like I can't even imagine what it's like trying to route like 112% in Hollow Knight.
This is my biggest pet peeve. I was so mad at my timing on everything. I first choose to learn 112. I finally am like, you know what? I've done like 2 runs. I think I get it. Boom, Fluke Revolution. All right, start learning that.
Yeah.
Boom, Scruffy Fluke Revolution.
Yeah.
All right, I'm starting to learn that. All right, Dash Master Fluke Revolution. I'm like, no, it
Boom,
keeps changing, and I can't remember anything because I have 8 brain. It's bad.
Yeah, no, dude,
especially
I
for
know
something
the
so
feeling.
long.
Yeah, and that was another thing I found as I started running the game for a while. Like when I first started out, it's like any tiny new thing I want to learn, I want to get it. And then after a while, like as a more experienced speedrunner now with so much muscle memory built up and everything, I'd see someone do a new movement or strat and like if that doesn't save at least like a full second, I'm not bothering.
Yeah.
Like it's not worth
you could lose that by
undoing,
just like hitting the wrong way or something. Yeah.
I'm not undoing like 3 years of muscle memory
Oof.
for a 0.1 time save. Sorry. Like I don't care that much.
And that's see, you just don't want it that much.
I don't. No, you're totally right. I don't. The new generation, they can have it. They can have all the top times.
Do you ever see yourself potentially doing a completion category like 106, 112?
Dude, I would love to, honestly. And the only thing that worries me is like if I do 112, like for most mortal humans, that's like a 4-hour real-time speedrun. Like for people who don't know, like when you look at times on Hollow Knight boards, those are loadless times where like we remove the time for loading screens. So real time, like an average Hollow Knight like even like a decent Hollow Knight speedrunner that just picks up 112, probably gonna be like a 4-hour run in real time. It's like, do I have 4 hours to just sit and do a run? Like, as much as I'd love to do higher completion categories, I could see maybe 106.
Yeah, 106 seems cool.
Like, I started learning True
Pantheons,
Ending,
which is the big one.
No, well, yeah, there's 107 for that too, which I know some people do. 107 is a cool category, but I picked up True Ending actually because there was the recent community tournament for the True Ending tournament. And I was doing a lot of commentary for that category just because I'd never run True Ending in my life, but I just have a good general knowledge about the game and how the mechanics of the game work. And I'm like, you know what? If I'm going to commentate high level races, I should at least run the category. And even that category,
good on
like
you
an
for
hour,
doing it. Yeah,
I know, right? And it was fun. It was nice to come back to. But even that category, like an hour and 10 minutes, I'm like, this is like pushing the length of how long I want to spend doing a speed run at one time.
Yeah, I originally, when I was like my first year or two of doing runs, like my ideal length is like 40 to 50 minutes.
Yeah, that's a great length.
It's like
what was your first speed game?
Crash 2 of the.
I think you mentioned that earlier. Yeah.
And I moved on to Spyro, and because they're kind of like cousins of each other, so. Plus, I played the
Nice.
HD one, so they're very like accessible. Like you can play pretty much on any computer or anything like that, which was nice.
Right, yeah. And then you
And
curse yourself with 112% in
I
Hollow Knight.
did, I did. Well, I started as just the the lowly any percent runner on current patch, and I like that a lot. And then Gidge told me to do down patch of all skills, which oh my, talk about things that I feel unresolved on. I've gotten so much better at the game, and my times are so dog on those categories. I'm like, I need to do those again. But also, I'm like, do I need to do those again? I don't know.
So I find that a lot too. Like when I come back to categories, a lot of the time it's because I've gotten just better at the game as a whole. I'm like, man, I'm embarrassed by that time. I got to go fix that time. I don't want people looking at the
Dang
leaderboards
it,
and
you're
thinking
selling
I'm
me.
this
Now I do
bad.
have to.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, teach me wall cling storage, please, and I'm in.
God, I'm the worst person to help you with that, but I can try.
I love movement tech. It's one of my like highest motivators in just
Yeah.
I mean any game really, but especially in the speed games. I'm like, I think that looks so sick. Like especially I see it out of transitions, like out of Soul Sanctum and stuff like that. I'm like, I don't know how
Yeah.
you do that though.
Well, then even when we
Zooming.
discovered like Blue Lake wall cling storage, for example,
Yeah.
like every casual viewer at the time, who doesn't spend their life watch it like in the Hollow Knight speedrunner Discord watching stuff like, oh my god, that looks so cool. How'd you do that? Like that stuff's fascinating to me.
It is. It's so
I
cool.
love that tech.
All right. I think we should probably start getting to about our closing. I've
Yeah,
got
sure.
a few more questions for you then.
Yeah, we can rapid fire them out. I've been doing a lot of talking.
Want to start off, I've got a borrowed recurring segment. So I have the previous guest ask a question to our next guest, and this one's coming all the way from a time machine that I had to go re-listen to the VOD and figure out what it was.
Sure.
And very relevant. What is your favorite type of pasta?
Favorite type of pasta? Oh man. Probably penne.
Oh,
I don't really have a good reason. Yeah. Don't have a great reason. I just like the shape of like penne.
So I actually, when I was in high school, I worked for very much minimum wage as a line cook at an Italian restaurant. And one of my favorite things to cook was penne alla vodka, only because you got to set it on fire. And I'm like, and it tastes delicious.
Nice.
Now,
setting things on fire is always fun.
Very simple pleasures. Do you have a question for our next guest?
I can think of one. I've been tossing some around in my head because I know like that's a segment
we can circle
you
back
do.
if you're not ready.
Yeah, I'm between like 2 or 3 in my head. Let's circle back and I'll think of a good one here.
All right. If you had to leave the listeners with one piece of advice, what would you tell them? This would be about life, running, anything.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'll keep it in the context of speedrunning because it's a speedrunning podcast, but this does apply to I think anything in life. Just it's okay to do things in life just for fun. Like it's okay to pick up a hobby or a new skill or something without any intent of like being a top performer and just enjoying it for the sake of enjoying it. And I think that leads to a pretty happy life.
I've found it anyway. It's really easy to try and muddy that in like, how can I make some sort of profitability or I guess advancement off of something that you invest your time into. So it's hard to just act like purely enjoy something. So
yeah, definitely
trying that every day.
I mean, it took me a while to realize that, like, because as a younger person, I felt very stressed. Like I had to be the best or near the top of every single thing I did. And just one, it's not sustainable. And two, it's I think it's hard to enjoy things when you're trying so hard to just always be good for the sake of being good. Yeah, just that's my advice to anybody. Just do things in life that just make you happy for the sake of enjoying them and having a good time.
I think that's beautiful.
Thank you.
Now, how can listeners support you in your work?
Yeah, sure. So I don't have like a vanity Discord URL, but it's pretty easy to find. Like if you go to my Twitter, my Twitter is probably the best place to support me. It's just twitter.com/RhinoFeeder. Pretty easy to find me.
Which it'll be in the description.
Yeah.
And if you're listening on audio sources, then of course you can find it.
Yeah, and then of course, obviously my twitch.tv/RhinoFeeder. My stream schedule is pretty inconsistent, to be honest, but I do stream fairly often. It's inconsistent but frequent.
Consistently inconsistent, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. Pop in. I'm streams are always pretty chill. I'm always happy to see new people come in and hang out. So those are probably the two biggest places you can support me, and you'll find my Discord through there.
And what's the immediate future looking like? What are you working on right now as far as stream stuff goes?
As far as stream stuff goes, I really want to push my any percent time down quite a bit in Hollow Knight. That's my goal right now. I think I could probably comfortably shave like another 20 seconds off my current time. So that's probably my goal right now. So if you come to my stream, 90% chance that's the type of content you're going to see for the foreseeable future.
And yeah, if it's not, still go stop by. I mean, hear more great talks like this.
Yeah, Saturday mornings, I always, for anybody who has any interest in Bloons Tower Defense 6, Saturday mornings I always stream myself doing the boss events, which is a nice little fun
backseaters come and give your best advice.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Everybody loves backseating. Yeah.
That's about all I've got for you. Is there anything you wish that we covered that I have not?
No, not really. But I do still have to ask my question to your next guest.
Mm-hmm.
I did think of one.
All right.
Yeah, nothing really that we didn't. I think I had a good time just chatting, hanging out, getting to talk a bit about speedrunning and my journey with it and my life.
Thank you again so much for coming on. I truly love doing this. So hearing this sort of stuff is just always fascinating to me.
Yeah, no, I'm happy you do this. I'm excited to keep watching your show and who comes on next.
Well, thanks. And yeah, speaking of, I need more people in the future. So inquire, Twitter, Discord, Twitch, whatever.
Yeah, I can definitely send some people your way and give them some positive reviews. But yeah, the question I have for your next viewer is, what song have you been listening to the most recently?
Oh, that's a good one. What's been your on repeat lately?
Oh man, I recently found this artist Aries, who's a rapper, and I've been listening to the song Sayonara by him a ton.
All right,
it's really
I'll have
good
to
song.
add it to a playlist for me to peep.
Yeah.
Spelled like you would expect, Aries?
Yeah, Aries, and then Sayonara, like how you'd expect that to be spelled. Yeah, I've been listening to that song a ton lately. Because I find a lot of music when I stream, I pick random playlists that like aren't mine, like just random curated Spotify playlists, and I find some good music doing that.
Oh my goodness, I'm also just realizing I feel very foolish for it almost. Something I definitely want to dive into because I think it's, I mean, very cool.
I have time. I have time.
Very much shows off you as a person, and spoiler, I think I'm hinting towards music a little bit, but do you have any other hobbies outside of speedrunning?
Yeah, I mean, my guitar is right here. My saxophone is in its case on the ground right below it, and then it's in my living room right now, but I have a keyboard too. I know how to play piano a little bit, so I play a few instruments, not as actively as I used to, but yeah, that's probably one of, like, music's always been a huge part of my life, and a lot of things I've learned from music and practicing music definitely cross over into my approach to speedrunning, believe it or not.
Oh, in which ways?
I've
got the creativity of a brick, so I'm always like, oh,
sure.
I'm a good muse though, you know.
Yeah, particularly about like how I'll practice a skip or a trick that's bugging me. Like, trying to think of an example, but more or less just the way, like, I'll try and, like, okay, I'm gonna practice this one skip over and over again. Okay, now I finally got it. Now I'm gonna go back, like, into the lead up to that skip and practice this over and over and over again. And that's kind of how I practice music. Like, if there's a difficult section in a piece I'm trying, like I'm gonna play like literally I would break things down sometimes. Like, I'm gonna play these 3 notes over and over again. And then, okay, like, let's add the 4th note. And okay, like, now let's go back 2 measures and lead into it and slowly progress like that. And I definitely approach speedrunning with the same mentality about how I build into, like, doing full segments and full runs.
Have you been playing since you were a kid?
Yeah, I've been playing piano since I was 5, but I was very inactive with that for most of my life. My main instrument is definitely my saxophone. I've been playing that since I was 9. I went to college with a scholarship for playing that. Like,
wow.
Yeah. I played in my college's jazz ensemble. It wasn't a music school at all. Like, I went to school for physics and computer science, but I just played in the jazz ensemble just because it was something fun to do. It gave me
better get someone to help pay the bill while doing something you actually like.
Right, and like, it wasn't a crazy scholarship or anything for how expensive college is, but like, it was like you said, I was getting paid to do something I would have done for free anyway because it was fun. I got to meet cool people. But yeah.
Do you play like with people nowadays, or is it mostly as a like self?
Yeah, mostly as a
what to
like
call it.
I mostly play by myself. Yeah, like like I'll throw my head like literally like music is the reason I have open ear headphones here. Like you can see if I tilt my head it's so much easier to hear myself. Like 'cause I can throw on headphones, throw on a YouTube track, grab my instrument, just play along, and I can still hear myself well. Um, but every once I have some friends that are really musically talented, and every once in a while they'll come over and like jam and stuff. But mostly just as a hobby in my room still.
I've kicked myself twice in my life now. When I was growing up, I was
Yeah.
I wanna do something musical, and I learned how to like read at least treble and bass, and
Right.
started to learn a couple instruments, but you don't use it, you lose it, at least in my case. And so I've
Very
never actually
much.
stuck with it. Nowadays, I'm like, I wish so badly I could just learn to play piano just like that. And it's something that you
Yeah.
have to invest a lot of time into, I think.
Seriously, yeah, you really do. Like, and I mean, it's not too late to learn if you get the
Yeah, of
urge.
course.
I know plenty of people in their adult life who picked up piano and are like pretty decent now. So
I still think I
never
might.
too
I just
late.
want to get to a spot where I feel like, oh, I'm making excuses, but
Sure.
I'm making excuses. I'm like, yeah, I will one day.
Yeah, well, one day, right? Definitely, you can start
Mm-hmm.
anytime.
Ugh.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you again for your time. That's all I have for you.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I mean, I'm happy this worked out. It's been a great time.
Yeah, and I don't have anything left to add. You were a great guest. I appreciate you for coming on, and especially, I mean, it didn't seem like you were hesitant at all with things, so appreciate the openness.
Yeah, no problem. Anytime. And I'll definitely be referring people to you to help you get some more people to do this too.
Well, thanks, everybody. If you don't already know Rhino, then you're crazy. If you know me and you don't know Alex, but yeah, give a follow, go say hi, be nice, and I will see you all next episode in 2 weeks. See you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.